Welcome to DownNotableContent. We are Alex.
And SJ Hoecherl. And here it is. Here we are again at the Hoecherl Annual Game Awards.
Let's do it. Hoecherl.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited. These are my favorite episodes. So
We're back.
Kind of crazy. Think about this is our third time doing Game of the Year.
That is crazy, actually. I looked, and our last Game of the Year episode was it was like 36, 38 or something.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the 50s now.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah. A little wild. Yeah. Before we get into our topic, though, it is kind of the Christmas season. Have you been doing anything to kind of get into the holiday at all?
Yeah. I finished all of my Christmas shopping, which is good. Did all the Christmas decorations, the tree. Every year, the putting the lights on the tree is the hardest part, but it's worth it. I swear it takes me like an hour on the lights alone for me to make sure they're put in the right spot. And the thing is, if you start putting too much lights at the bottom, because I usually start at the bottom and then I roll up, then you run out of lights when you get to the top. So then you have to readjust everything and vice versa. If you don't use enough, then you get a bunch of extras. I realize that most trees these days have like built-in lights,
right?
So you don't have to put it on. But we really, really like the shape of our tree, so yeah, we don't want to let it go. So I'm willing to put up with that. It's good though.
Fair enough.
How about you?
I was gonna say our tree does have built-in, like putting our tree up is 3 quick pieces, and it takes a minute, and then we just get to do the fun part of decorating, and that's it. But your tree definitely looks quite a bit more genuine, and like it's an actual tree. Ours definitely, you can tell looking at it that it's not like an actual tree that came out of the ground or anything.
It's like substantial, right?
I
like the width and how thick, and
No, yeah, it's like full bodied, and yeah, it looks good.
Awesome. Awesome.
No, and I made a list of Christmas movies, the classics that I watch every year, and then I came up with 5 or 6 that I kind of have on a every couple years or so rotation, or ones that I just haven't ever seen. I've been slowly working my way through that list. So.
What's the most recent one you saw?
Wife and I watched Elf earlier this week.
Okay, all right, pretty good.
We've still got some, like I've still got Charlie Brown Christmas, A Christmas Story, Polar Express, a lot of the like very, very classic ones. Still got to get to. It's a Wonderful Life, so I'll have to watch that. But excited to see them all again because they're great for the most part.
Nice. Well, I'm hearing in the back that the bird, the logo, the mascot of our show is like excited, so I'm just gonna get her out real quick.
Yeah, she's very hyperactive today, but I would be too, because this episode is gonna be pretty exciting. So it's good to see her again. I think it's been quite a while since she's been on camera, hasn't it?
Come on, look, smile for the people. Not focused.
She was smiling. You couldn't see it because it wasn't focused, but she was smiling.
Yeah, she definitely was.
Exactly.
Okay, well, should we just quickly, go over real quick what the Game Awards are, how it differs from the actual Game Awards. So, just laying down the ground rules. These are based on games that we've played this year, regardless of when the release date was. So if we played this game this year, it can be nominated, and we are just picking our subjective favorites.
Yes. I don't know if we will run into this much this year. But for example, if a game was played a few years ago and then played again this year, it is still just as eligible, regardless of how many times we have individually played through the game.
Hmm.
This year, I don't really have any of, well, you'll see a little bit of that, but for the most part, I definitely tried to prioritize new experiences. But it is fair game for any category, any game is pretty much ready to go.
I feel the same. Yep. Um, I don't think we have any questions. Should we just get into the first topic? I feel like I'm forgetting something.
No, I think we're good to go. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off with our first?
Best Content Creator. SJ and Alex's favorites for the year.
Okay. Best content creator. So I have three up for nomination. I will explain each in case you are not familiar. First one is Carl Jobst. Carl Jobst is he's a YouTuber. He makes really good videos about speedrunning and speedrunning cheaters and that kind of speedrunning cheating. That's a big taboo. No. He covers all that scandalous stuff. Really good quality journalism in terms of like YouTube standards. And I don't think I've really talked about it much on here, but I really like watching and hearing about certain speedrunning strategies and stuff. This first speedrun I ever watched was Mario Sunshine. And I just completely fell in love with it. I don't think every game is interesting to watch speedrunning, but anyway. Second one is Habby147. He is a VR YouTuber. So he covers VR games and he's very entertaining. The way that he edits and delivers his silliness is really, really good. Third one is Turned Down for Walt. He is he's a Melee YouTuber.
Okay.
And I am a big fan of Super Smash Bros. Melee. And he's been covering a lot of upsets and kind of the development of the Melee meta that's taken place this year. And isn't that just amazing that you have a game that came out years and years ago and the meta is still, it's not stagnant. It still changes without any patches or anything, Any questions before I say who the winner is?
No, I mean, I haven't heard of any of these YouTubers before, but it sounds like I've got 3 new ones to check out, but I guess who should I check out first? Because who is your winner?
Well, the one you should check out first would be DownNotableContent. That is definitely the best content creator of the year, but for conflict of interest reasons, they are not eligible. My number one best content creator, aside from that, though, is going to be Turned Down for Walt.
Okay.
So his editing, just quality of videos that he produces is insane. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, I really can't say anything that's going to do it justice. So if you're a big fan of Smash Brothers, check out Turned Down for Walt. Walt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats. For me this year, I also have 3 nominees. I have got Video Game Donkey. I have the What Culture Gaming Podcast. And I also have Nakey Jakey. So Video Game Donkey, very popular YouTuber. I just really vibe with his sense of humor for the most part. Like it's very dumb, but like not on like a surface level. Like he just says these silly things. His comedic timing is perfect. And when he does do like a more serious video where he talks about the state of the industry or like if a game comes out that he was really looking forward to that was not good, I think his analysis of what went wrong and how this shows potential problems in the future adds a nice balance to his portfolio as a whole. So you get like a decent range of content for a YouTuber that mainly does comedy videos. Nakey Jakey only released like 5 or 6 videos this year, but they're all like these 30-minute long video essays on various topics. Like one that came out this year was he talked about Bethesda's game design and why he thinks that it is outdated because of the problems in the release with Starfield.
I was gonna say it's got to be about Starfield, right?
And he's like, but then he goes back and he's like, but we should have seen this coming because of what happened with Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 and how those games were just an attempt to replicate the successes of Skyrim and how Skyrim's success has caused Bethesda's downfall in a way. So it was a really interesting perspective. And that's part of a series that he's done, because he's also done one on Naughty Dog. He's done one on Rockstar. So I appreciate him going and talking about how, you know, some of the most popular and successful video game companies in the world are failing. Because I think gaming as a whole feels like it's very stagnant. Like people love to complain about how there's nothing new from this generation. And however you feel about it or not, like taking that further than that and taking those specific examples is, I think, something that was really cool.
You gotta send me these.
Yeah, for sure.
I especially want to watch the one about Starfield because
I'll
I've been curious
send it to
about that game for a while.
It's way cool. And those two people are great. But the What Culture Gaming Podcast is the winner again this year. Like an insane amount of content. These people release 3 podcast episodes a week. Like
what? 3 a week?
Absolutely insane what they do. I mean, they work for, you know, What Culture Gaming is, you know, its own website and stuff. So it goes beyond just a YouTube thing. They've got lots of employees, but there's 2 main people who run the podcast channel. And I'm not going to go too into it because I already talked about how much I love them in last year's Game of the Year episode. But like their approach to episode design and how they handle, you know, balancing 2 people who have very, very different opinions. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot about how to be a better podcast host by watching and listening to their episodes.
That's cool.
And so, like, for that, that's kind of gone beyond the gaming medium into also, you know, bleeding over into our product as well. So I just felt like they absolutely had to win because they had another great year of compelling content. And they're, besides ourselves, the only podcast that I make sure to listen to every episode. Like if I get behind on other podcasts, I'll usually just let it go. But this one, and then a Disneyland podcast, but that's for another time.
Of course.
Like, yeah, I just, every single episode I've got to listen to because I just love, hearing what they have to say. So
You've been telling me to check out Donkey for a long time.
yeah.
Send me that one too.
Okay.
Well, time to turn the attention to the flock a little bit. When I say the flock, I mean our Discord members. We had them submit their own personal Game of the Years, and they were also allowed to give us reasons. The first one comes from Ducktig or Duketig. I think that's how you say it. This is also Zach. He's been on our podcast before. His Game of the Year is Elite Dangerous. No surprise whatsoever. And this was his reason, for a drastic upturn in content, rebalancing, and overhauling the experience from the top to bottom. So Elite Dangerous is technically an ongoing service game. I think when I bought it, it was, but it's not like a free to play game. I think I bought it for like $10 or something. But they have regular updates. Well, they haven't had regular updates for a really long time, but this year in particular, they've added new ships. There have been new events that have taken place and stuff. So, I kind of know what Zach is talking about here. But Elite Dangerous, wonderful game. I've talked about it in this podcast a lot. It needs no introduction.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So our next
Do not eat that cable.
our next category is
Most innovative. Games that innovate the medium.
most innovative or best innovation. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and kick us off. I actually only have 2 nominees this year. I have Neva and Returnal. I put Neva on here despite its similarities to Grease because instead of making a platformer or essentially a walking sim with no words and a compelling story, they did that with an action game this time. And I've never played another action game that did not have any words that was so emotionally moving. And I will save other areas of innovation for awards later in this video because I bring them up later. But a stunning move forward in kind of the genre, or I guess not genre, but in their style of game that they've created. And I'm excited to see what Studio Nomada has next.
Very cool.
And as great as it is, my winner for this award is Returnal. Because I have been very open about how I believe the future of console gaming to be very heavily based in haptic feedbacks and giving you a physical reaction to what you're doing in game. And so Returnal, being a game that uses the PS5 haptics beautifully, had to be in here. There's a biome. So the game's split up into 6 different sections, right? 6 different biomes. And each biome feels differently, not just because of what you're seeing, but because of how your controller reacts to the environment.
What?
So like in the first one, there's very heavy rain. So you feel raindrops like on your fingers as you're playing because the haptics are just going crazy.
That's crazy.
And you
I
go
didn't know
over and
Returnal did that.
dude, it's nuts. It's so cool.
Yeah.
There's a desert biome where like you feel a little bit of like a wind breeze kind of go from the left to the right on your controller as you're playing through occasionally. It's insane. It is so incredibly immersive. And then like the vibrations that you get when you shoot guns in that game, like it is just such an immersive experience that if this is how Sony continues to use their resources to make games that feel that immersive, I'm very excited to see what they have next. And I hope that trend continues because it's what I'd like to see more of in the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting because Nintendo took a step in that direction with HD Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the main issue with it is that it only works well if you're using Joy-Cons.
Right.
And not a lot of people will choose to use Joy-Cons, right? And the Pro Controller does have HD Rumble, but it is not nearly as powerful. You don't feel it as much. It's just not implemented very well.
Yeah.
And Sony just turned it all the way up to 11 with the haptics. Yeah. And I think that's great. Yeah.
And I mean, I've heard, if you haven't heard, well, everyone should because our Discord was pretty active. The Game Awards awarded Astrobot their Game of the Year. And I know that game similarly uses the PS5 controller, those haptics.
I thought that was going to be your best innovation.
I just haven't played it.
Wait.
I've played Astro's Playroom. I haven't
Oh,
played the full
okay.
Astrobot
I
release.
I gotten them mixed
I
up.
I have
Yeah.
to get around to it. Um, but yeah. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, mine, we have Hogwarts Legacy.
okay.
I love that game. Um, it's innovative in the sense that I think I think it takes a lot of creativity and know-how to be able to take the source material of Harry Potter and make the game feel like that world, Harry Potter, in terms of sounds and looks and, you know, just kind of how the whole world feels and the color tints and everything. Um, and how you interact with these magical elements, you know. So, you know, when you pick up an item, do you just pick it up or does it magically just kind of disappear,
Hmm.
right? And how that effect looks and feels, and how you interact with the castle. You know, when certain doors or areas open up, what does that animation look like? And those little, you know, small attention to detail really makes a big difference. And I thought it deserved a mention in here. Pokemon TCG Pocket. Honestly, I think it's innovative because they took the original formula of Pokemon TCG, 60 cards in a deck. I've talked about this before, getting it down to 20 so that it's more approachable and friendly for people that just don't have the time or resources to collect 60 cards for a deck, right? And reworking the system in a way where um, you can still have a lot of different variety in play styles and stuff. And they did that by, I mean, obviously having new cards. These are cards dedicated to TCG Pocket. Some are existing like designs and stuff, but and then completely working the energy system. Um, I think it's great, you know, and the events have been really fun. So, but my winner is neither of those two, and it is Blade and Sorcery. So, if you haven't heard, Blade and Sorcery is a VR game. It's on uh, Oculus, or I guess MetaQuest, and PCVR. It's a physics-based combat game, and it started in beta, and I bought it in beta, where you're in a sandbox environment. You can spawn enemies. You can use magic, and you can use swords and bow and arrows and all these kind of weapons. And it's particularly fun because they're very like modding friendly, so they encourage mods and stuff. So, you know, you can download lightsabers and have lightsaber duels and use the force and do all this kind of crazy stuff. The thing that makes it really good is that the physics are really good. So like every object in the game has a collision box. It acts a certain way. You know, if you take a hammer and swing at a wooden box, it breaks in a way that you would expect it to. Um, so it makes it really fun because, you know, if you're like, wait, could I do this to make this thing move to hit this enemy and would it damage them? It will. Um, but what made it really great this year is they dropped their very first 1.0 release this year. It's not in beta anymore. And with that came um their it's kind of like a campaign, like an RPG system where you start out and you're going through these dungeons, you collect these crystals, and you get new magic abilities each time, and you're powering that up and becoming more powerful. And as you do so, the enemies have more armor, they become stronger and stuff. But also the magic, before it was like they had three elements. They have fire, gravity, and lightning. or electricity. Now you can combine different magics in each hand and stuff, and they have different interactions with one another and different levels of spells and things that you're able to do. So like the progression with all of that, with the physics-based combat, is so satisfying. And it's innovating because it's, from my understanding, incredibly difficult to have a physics-based engine, and then you mix magic into it with all these multiple, dozens and dozens of possibilities in terms of interactions. And they made a way to have some kind of like RPG element where you're like powering up your character, in this like campaign mode kind of thing. So they're just leagues ahead of a lot of other VR studios, and
Nice.
I hope to see more like VR development. I think it's still like relatively niche, so you don't have a
Right.
lot in that space, but yeah.
Like, if you were to take Blade and Sorcery's mechanics and like attach it to a pre-existing IP, like what do you think would be the coolest experience that you could create using what has already been built?
Hold that question for 1 second because I just noticed that our video feed went out.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
A few moments later.
All right, we are back. Could you repeat your question one more time, please?
So, if you were to take Blade and Sorcery and attach it to like a pre-existing IP, what would you want them to create using what they've already built?
Just based on that combat system? Oh. This is kind of the fanboy in me saying this. I'm not saying that it would be a slam dunk, but it'd be cool to see it in Zelda. Yeah, I just can't help but think that,
Sure.
First thing that came to my mind.
No, that makes sense.
I mean, imagine like you've got the hook shot.
Right.
You aim the hook shot and you go to the thing where you aim.
Right.
I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Or like in Ocarina of Time, like how Link uses Din's fire. He slams the ground with it and does the thing. Like you could just do that in VR. That would be so cool. Okay, so before we go to our next topic, let's hear Game of the Year from Zaruma. And his is Rivals of Aether 2. And he didn't give an explanation or anything. He just said, my Game of the Year is Rivals of Aether 2. And
Nice.
I understand, because that one's actually in some of my categories as well. So I'll explain what makes that game so great. But the next topic is
Best soundtrack. Games with the best audio design and music.
Best Soundtrack. I've got a few on here. This is the topic with the most for me, the most number of nominees.
Okay.
We have Gree, because yes, I played that game and I finished it in one sitting. Minecraft.
Soundtrack
I mean,
slaps.
I don't need to say anything else.
That's it.
Elite Dangerous. And I guess when we say best soundtrack, I don't remember if the technical name of this category is best soundtrack or best sound design. I kind of mean just music and sounds in general in the video game, because that can really enhance the experience. And in the case of Elite Dangerous, there's not a lot of music. There's a few tracks in there that play at certain moments and stuff, but a lot of times it's silent. And that's what makes it great, because it makes it feel realistic. And the sounds of the ship, when you're controlling the ship, when like each ship has its own different thruster sound, boost sound, all these different things, and it helps with the immersion a lot. So that's why that's in here. Hogwarts Legacy, because the music in that game just feels like Harry Potter, and it's just right at home. Tales of Arise, because that game was just great, and the music does really enhance the experience. And there's a lot of emotional moments in that game,
Mm.
and I can't think of any specific track off the top of my head, but it all just meshed really well. And Control.
Mm.
I haven't finished Control yet, but I'm playing it right now. And the first time I used like one of the main character's psychic abilities, and the sound that it makes when she pulls an object toward her and throws it, like, it sounds really cool and crazy. And it sounds kind of like how you would expect that kind of power to sound, which I don't know how they did. I don't know how they did it, but they did, and it's great. Okay, the winner is gonna be Grizz. I'm not sure how you say it. I've heard it pronounced multiple different ways, but I played that game start to finish. It took me about 3 hours, I think. Really, really good. Just absolutely beautiful. Without the music, this game would completely crumble. It wouldn't even be worth mentioning, if I'm being honest. Like, because the music is really what brings the whole thing together, which is a pretty like emotional experience. The game is about like emotions and grief and stuff, and it's the music that really allows you to feel all of that. And there's like elements of fear in there as well. And there's one part in particular where like the combination of like what happened on screen and the music that started playing, like I got jump scared. And I wasn't expecting to get jump scared in this game, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, "Oh my gosh, holy crap!" But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Even if you don't play the game, I highly recommend checking out the music from this game, because you could totally listen to it, and it's very peaceful, very nice. But if you played the game, I think the meaning behind the music will be a bit more meaningful. Yeah.
That's 2 years in a row that it's won best soundtrack, baby, and it absolutely deserves it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on my list, I have Returnal. Returnal soundtrack is very ambiance and like atmospheric. Like think more of like a Breath of the Wild type of soundtrack, where a lot of that music is like just faint notes and then long periods of silence and then more notes. It's pretty similar to that, with the exception of the boss fights. Each boss has its own theme, and they are something, man.
I like it when every boss has a different theme,
Right.
because like some games, like they're just a boss theme, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then the next two kind of tied as runner-ups for me. Pokemon Shining Pearl. Don't need to say anything else.
I forgot that you played that.
Oh yeah.
I totally forgot.
And I played through a good chunk of the Kingdom Hearts series, so don't need to say anything else about that.
Yep.
But my winner this year is Neva. The artist who did the soundtrack for Grease came back for Neva. They go by Berlinist. That's their artist name. And very different vibes from Grease. Grease definitely has a bit more, I want to say, like scale, or like a bit more of the like, I don't want to say electronic, but like synthesized feels and organs. Those are the kind of sounds you get there. Whereas over here in Neva, it's a bit more orchestral, a bit more string and like flute based. But the real reason that this won is in Neva, as you're going through your journey, along with this wolf, deer, cub, if you stand still for more than like 20 seconds or so, your player character will start to sing the game's main theme to the wolf.
Oh, that's cool.
And then there are a couple other sections where like the game has you do that. And so it just brings this nice little combination and brings the music into the gameplay as well. And it is a phenomenal experience from start to finish because of the music again. So I can echo what SJ said, and even if you haven't played Never or have no plans to play it, it is a very pleasant soundtrack, and I would recommend checking it out anyway.
Even if you never play it. Okay. Before we get to our next one, we have JC Hansen's Game of the Year. And his is Paper Mario, The 1,000-Year Door. He explains, just because of the nostalgia factor, with an honorable close second going to the excellent Silent Hill 2 remake. So, I think a lot of people grew up, our generation with the 1,000-Year Door. He was definitely one of them. And Silent Hill 2 remake, I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Mm-hmm.
That is not my alley. It's too scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Have you played through the 1,000-Year Door? I know you have it.
I forgot that we have it. I have not.
Okay. You have any plans?
I got
to
it for
check out?
Erica. I don't know.
Okay.
If it ever gets to the point where I don't have any other Shining games in my backlog, probably. Realistically, probably not.
Okay.
I've watched a lot of gameplay though.
Sure.
I've watched Erica play it like twice, and from what I've seen, it's a fantastic game. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Our next award we're gonna be giving out is
Best Multiplayer. Games with the best overall multiplayer experience, online or offline.
Best Multiplayer. Is that
Do you have
right?
anything for this category?
Yeah, I actually do.
You do? Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah. I do only have 2 nominees. The first one is Blanc. It's local multiplayer. It doesn't do like anything special. It's a fun enough game. But yeah.
This one, well, didn't you say this one was like a little bit disappointing, or?
Yeah, it's a lot rougher around the edges than a lot of indie games I've played. Pretty repetitive and like very easy until the puzzle solving becomes like very obtuse. So it like kind of becomes frustrating because you're either a little bit bored or completely lost. So yeah.
Sounds rough.
Yeah. But my winner is going to be Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Well deserved.
I mentioned this on our last episode. When I first downloaded it, I was just planning on collecting cards. I wasn't planning on participating in the battling at all. But I've really enjoyed the battles. Like I've really, really gone into it. And like for me, I like how you can go into battles with a complete disadvantage, right? Because decks tend to be built based off of types, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so just recently, I was going for the current badge where you have to win consecutive battles, which is kicking my butt. I still can't get the last one. I got the first 2, but I cannot string together 5 wins in one. It's been really frustrating.
I haven't gotten it either. I've gotten 3 wins. That's the max I've gotten.
I've
so
gotten
far.
to 4 twice, and then lost
Dang.
my 5th. It's been tough. But in the course of that, I was playing my fire deck because my fire deck was doing pretty solid, and so I threw it out, and guy sets up across from me, puts up 2 Articuno EXs.
No.
And I was like, well, shoot. I ended up winning that battle.
Nice.
So I appreciate that the team has created a game where you can have like a pretty big disadvantage,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to concede the fight right away. Like there are ways to overcome it even with that type disadvantage. So I felt like they deserved a shout for making a multiplayer game that, even though there's a lot of randomness and RNG and luck based elements in it, there are still strategies to overcome some of those difficulties. And yeah, I think they deserved a shout for it.
I agree. That reminds me of one time. First turn, I see that it's. So I have a lot of water decks. I think water's my favorite type right now in TCG Pocket, which is funny because like that's also one of my favorite types in the actual Pokemon games. I'm running a water deck, and then I see the lightning energy on the other side. I'm like, oh crap!
No.
And then first turn, Pikachu EX, Zapdos EX, like setting up, right? It's a Pikachu sweeper team. And I was like, oh man, I'm definitely losing this. I won.
Let's go!
I won. I beat that deck with my Starmie deck. And I was like, really proud of myself. Yeah. I was like, dang, okay. I was really close to just turn
Conceding,
1
yeah.
conceding. Yeah, but I didn't. And I played it out, and
Nice.
that was fun.
Well, I think it's a good thing to do because, like, even when there have been times where I've known I'm gonna lose, like there are certain strategies that I see other players use, and I'm like, oh, like I had never thought of trying something like that.
Yes,
It's like
you do see that a lot.
even when you lose, like you can still gain something from it.
Yeah.
So, but
She really wants
She
to eat
really
that cable,
wants-
man. Like, she loves cables, and that's just perfect size for her. Okay, so that's your winner.
Mhm.
So that one is also on my list. I also have Minecraft. It just, I don't need to say anything there. Smash Ultimate. I did play Smash this year. It has multiplayer. The problem is, it's not that great. The lag, and you're at the mercy of the other person's internet connection as well, which can be frustrating. And I don't really play online. So when I say best multiplayer for Smash, I just mean like split screen, playing it at home with the boys. But my winner is going to be Rivals of Aether 2. Now here's why it stands out above TCG Pocket for me. If Rivals didn't come out this year, or if I didn't play Rivals this year, it would have gone to TCG Pocket, hands down. But Rivals of Aether 2 is a Smash-like game, except imagine if playing Smash Online had zero lag. When I say zero lag, like I mean zero lag. I mean, granted, there have been a couple times when we've been connected to, some server or one of us had issues, but like very, very few and far in between. And pretty much lagless online fighter game experience is crazy to me.
Right.
So just that quality alone, I think they deserve it. Yeah.
Nice.
You've never played Rivals, right?
We played one round of the first
first one.
Rivals of Aether,
Yeah.
and I
yeah.
got absolutely bodied, and I haven't played it since.
But this is the second one.
I feel like because they took my advice and changed it from a 2 to a Roman numeral, like I feel like I have to give them at least a round or two.
Yeah, I
'cause-
mean,
No, I'm just kidding. No, I
It's
mean,
fun.
I'm not against trying it out. I just am not a PC
And
gamer.
and I'll be honest, like if you don't have people to play it with on a regular basis, um, I probably wouldn't be playing it all the time, right? Oh my gosh.
She just really wants it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put you away. Yeah. Jordan and I play that like all the time, and it's great. Zach plays it too.
Nice. No, yeah. I mean, and even from outside this little circle, I've only heard good things. Ronai, you gotta stop.
I'm gonna put it away.
You gotta go put her away. While you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and share our last Discord member who shared their game of the year with us. From Qualthorn, he chose Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door as well. His explanation actually says that I know it's a remake of an old game, but this is the first time I played it. And it is truly an amazing game, and I think the updated graphics and new features warrants it. And Qualthorn, you can choose whatever you want because any game that you play is up for your Game of the Year award. So I think this is a great choice. I was honestly a little surprised to see that it didn't really get any love at other Game Award ceremonies.
Yeah,
right? 'Cause,
I would have expected it to, but maybe it's because it's a remake.
I mean,
But
that
other
hasn't
remakes
stopped
have gone in there.
right? Like Silent Hill 2 has been at least
Yeah.
given nominations for stuff. So,
Right.
but
Interesting.
maybe it's because it's more of a kid-friendly game. It seems like kid-friendly games don't really get the nod unless they're Mario or Zelda,
Honestly,
like traditional Mario. I should
yeah,
say.
honestly, I agree with that, and I think that's kind of a problem.
I would
think it's
agree.
I think it's kind of a cultural problem. Anyway, not to get into that, but
There you go.
I do want to add though that I think it's noteworthy that Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, Qualthorn never played it, so he had zero nostalgia factor for it,
Mhm.
right? But it was still his game of the year.
And he had a big list. He sent us his list of everything.
Oh my gosh,
played.
he played so many games.
He got through a lot, and still is winner. So
that says something.
yeah, there you go.
Okay, our next topic.
Best overworld. Games with the most captivating and immersive overworlds.
Best overworld.
Mm-hmm.
For these, I have Tales of Arise. I've talked about this in my Tales of Arise review, but the worlds are gorgeous. The art style, everything works so well together. Each city, town, biome you visit it's amazing. Breathtaking, like, scenery. You know, the closest thing I can think of is like Xenoblade. That kind of scenery.
Sorry, Jordan.
Hogwarts Legacy. You've already heard what I said about Hogwarts, so I think that makes sense, right? It feels like Harry Potter. Elite Dangerous. This one's kind of unfair. I thought about it when I was putting together this list because the reason why Elite Dangerous is on here is because it feels so real when you're out there. Like, the space between stars and planets is actual,
Right.
those light years away. So, I mean, so if it mirrors the real world, obviously it's going to be one of the best overworlds because it's like our Milky Way overworld, right? So it's in there for that reason, but I'm going to have to give this one to Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but when I started that game, Hogwarts feels like Hogwarts. You go outside, you go to Hogsmeade, all these places. It feels like those places. And like, you know, all of the you know, when you're watching the movies and in certain like Quidditch matches or like certain parts of the movie, you get to see like, you know, the camera might like pan around and you'll see like the background, all these forests and beautiful places, right? You can go to those places in this game. And so like they've basically recreated that world 1-to-1, and anywhere you can see, you can pretty much go. Like, imagine Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, except you get to do all that in Harry Potter. Um, yeah, it was just breathtaking. I just absolutely
Yeah.
loved it.
Nice. Nice. Um, for me, my first nominee is Pokemon Shining Pearl because Sinnoh is the best Pokemon region. Let me change that. Sinnoh is my favorite Pokemon region. I can't say that it's objectively the best, but it is my favorite. So anytime I have a chance to go to Sinnoh, I love it. Um, I also have Neva as a nominee. It was incredible to see a side scroller build for very, very different feeling seasons. You play through 4 seasons in Neva, and they're all distinct and different, and the art style definitely helps because it's just so beautiful to look at.
In terms of the world, is it pretty different from like Greece, or is it like a similar style, or
It's fairly similar.
yeah,
Um,
which isn't bad.
like
I love it.
I mean, Greece feels very like otherworldly to me, where there's like unique structures and stuff, whereas Neva's a lot more nature based.
Gotcha.
But there
Okay.
is still kind of those. I mean, there's one point where you've got floating platforms that are made up of organic plant life that you are climbing across. But anyway, um, I also have Red Dead Redemption 2 on my list, and I was really close to giving it the win. Um, the reimagined version of the United States, um, and kind of that Midwest to southern area of the country feel that it has. It is just so fun to
Yeah.
ride through that game.
And you've been replaying that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's so vibrant and alive because of all the different moving pieces that are going around, how towns change based off of what you've done. Um, there's a pretty big time jump at one point in the game, and revisiting those places 8 years later is a pretty special experience. Um, so very, very cool, very well designed, and yeah. But I had to give the win to Returnal, for just how different it is, and as a sci-fi enthusiast, an alien planet that has 6 distinct areas that all feel different and equally well designed and confusing and like labyrinth-esque. Um, it's stunning. Like it should be studied in video game education courses on how to design certain like if that's the type of vibe that you're going for, like I can't think of a better example of like a haunting, isolated alien planet. It's incredible, man.
Would you say that it's the sci-fi factor, or is it just how different and unique each of those worlds felt that gives it the edge over Red Dead 2?
That's a great
It's
question.
probably subjective at the end of the day,
Um,
right? But obviously.
I think I think for me, it's that there are areas of the Red Dead map that I don't like going to.
Hmm.
Um, like there's a city that's called Saint Denis, and it's kind of based on New Orleans. Um, and it's like an actual city. So instead of the mud roads and the old saloons and stuff that you've gotten before, like it's a little bit more developed. They've got like cobblestones and stuff. Um, but it's really grimy, really dirty, commentary on like the industrial revolution and the problems that brought and stuff. Whereas in Returnal, like I would be happy to play through any of those biomes, and like I enjoy every part of that world. Whereas in Red Dead, even though objectively it's probably more of an accomplishment, um, just some personal things that I don't like about certain places in that world give it the edge to Returnal instead.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, very cool.
Mm.
Oh boy. Well, our next one is going to be
Best art style. Games with the most creative and beautiful art styles that set themselves apart.
best art style. Do I start?
Go for it.
Vampire Survivors.
Nice. It's a good pick. Good nominee, I should say.
Yeah, honestly, just that old school vibe. Having that art style, I think it's bold, to go for that, because I think a lot of people, they want the new shiny looking things, but I think that art style works really well for that kind of game. And for those of you that don't know, Vampire Survivors is kind of an arcadey game. You start the game out, you pick a character. A character has one given weapon that he, she, they, whatever will start with. Well, because some of them are like monsters and weird creatures. That's why I say that. And then as you go and level up and you collect these little like diamond piece kinds of things, you get more weapons and you upgrade them and you become stronger and stronger. And by like the end of the round, you're like shooting lasers and throwing weapons all over the place, and it's like this chaos that is super satisfying. This loop of like defeating a whole bunch of enemies, upgrading your weapon over and over and over, pretty much until you die, is really, really satisfying. And it's great if you just have like 15-20 minutes to kill. Very, very fun. And I like that art style.
Like, I should say that everyone loves sprite art, but like the arcade style should be given more love as well, because it's definitely a nice breath of fresh air.
It's great, and it'll run on anything because of that. Rivals of Aether 2. I put that on here because I think their transition from 2D to 3D was very well done. The characters look great. They gave them voice acting, which isn't necessarily a part of this category, but it's a contributing factor. The characters just feel more alive. My only thing that I didn't love about the first Rivals game was that, I guess, I was used to Super Smash Brothers, which has fantastic character models, fantastic voice acting. The characters feel like themselves, they're alive. When it's 2D sprite work and there's no voice acting, just makes it feel a little bit more, I don't even know what the right word is, but now that it's like on par with like Smash quality in that sense, so I felt like they deserved a mention in here. And Agree is in there for all the same reasons that you already brought up for Neva. But the winner is going to be Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah. One could argue, well, they just took the art style of the movies and that's all that it is. But I imagine it's a little more difficult to actually make that happen, right? You take a movie, turn it into a video game, to maintain its feel, the feel of the movies, I think is very, very difficult. Even if it's not like a photorealistic movie, So, yeah, I've already said what I need to say about that game.
There you go.
Yeah.
On here, I have Red Dead Redemption 2 because it is stunning to look at.
You're stunning to look at.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of me to say.
Yeah.
Like, the character face models can be a little bit iffy, but when everything else looks as good as it does, and the fact that you're not really looking at characters' faces all that often, is it's just incredible. Like, and some of the artistic choices that they made as far as characters' costumes, like I could go on and on about it, but I won't, because I think that other games deserve this a little bit more. I did put Blanc on the list because I love the old comic strip Calvin and Hobbes style.
That art style immediately caught me when it got featured in Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really what hooked me to it,
Oh, me too. Yeah,
right?
I really liked it. My runner up is Returnal. I've kind of already mentioned. I do want to bring up the monster design as well. Is just very enticing. They look very menacing, and Returnal's a little bit of a bullet hell game where your enemies shoot a whole bunch of projectiles at you and you have to dodge them, right? And the way that these projectiles move and just, it's very good. It's very well designed visually. But my winner is going to be Neva. My fascination and love for 2D hand-drawn animation. I mean, it's just go watch like a snippet of gameplay with no HUD, just allowing that game's visuals to speak for itself. Beautifully designed areas, beautifully designed characters. It's Neva's the winner, and there wasn't really a question of it. Like, y'all should have seen this coming, but
Makes sense. I mean, I think that studio designs its games around the visuals, right? Or it uses the visuals to convey the message that it's trying to convey. So, very cool. All right. Next one is
Best boss. Bosses with the most engaging gameplay and overall experience.
Best Boss. So, for this year, we have a new category addition. After this, we're going to talk about Best Antagonist, but they are different. Best Boss, we're talking about just the gameplay. How is that boss battle? Was it good? Best Antagonist is more of the character itself. So for Best Boss, I have Blade and Sorcery. This is a particularly cool boss because you walk in to this area at the end of a dungeon, and you're in VR, so you're standing there. You see this big, imagine like a stone talus. Get up, stand up. Its eye glows. It locks onto you, and then you start the fight with this thing. There are times when you have to climb on its back to break one of its like crystals on the back and stuff, and you have to run around. Really, really cool. I haven't experienced anything like it. And then I also have Tales of Arise. They have some really unique bosses in there. Each boss battle is pretty unique, and each boss kind of has like his or her final move that they'll do. And like a short cutscene will start like right as they're like charging it up, and they're gonna do like a butt ton of damage to you. So either trying to like you're trying to decide, okay, do I try to defeat the boss before this move goes off, or do I try to like heal up and brace myself for the damage? That kind of mechanic is really unique in that game. But the number one is going to Cyberpunk 2077. So Cyberpunk, I'm just going to throw this disclaimer out there that there's a lot of games that I was playing toward the end of last year that ended up on last year's lists. And then, those inevitably are also on this year's list of games that I played. Cyberpunk was in a lot of categories last year, so I'm choosing to not pick it for a lot of different things this year because I've talked about a lot of the reasons why I've really enjoyed that game last year already. So if you're curious about that, check out last year's episode. But I had to give best boss to this one because I finished the DLC early this year, and not even that. Like every boss battle is unique, so like each boss kind of has their own ability or strengths, and that you have to work around. They might be like really fast, so it's if you like shoot them with a gun, they will dodge your bullets in real time, and you see that happening. It's really cool. Or you might have, an enemy that tries hacking you a lot, or is trying to snipe you, or one that's like super super bulky and is in like this mech machine kind of thing. So there were just a lot of like unique bosses in general, I want to say, in that one. Even just like some of the side quest bosses that you'd come across were like, I never knew what was coming. It was always unpredictable, and there are so many of these different types of enemies to fight in that game, that I thought it deserved the win. I wanted to give this one to Tales of Arise. That's probably the runner-up, but I couldn't quite do it because, and I've mentioned this in my review, but the difficulty spike with bosses, just the fact that I had to turn down the difficulty in order to feel like I was on equal ground and had a decent chance of defeating a boss. And this is like after a couple tries, right? I'm not, I don't think I'm crappy or anything. That made it a little bit frustrating, and I shouldn't have had to do that. So that's the only thing that kept it from going to the first place.
I get that. I think that makes sense. On my list, I have Cynthia from Pokemon Shining Pearl. Because when you fight a Pokemon fight against someone who has a perfectly balanced team, one Pokemon who originally didn't have any weaknesses, like Spiritomb didn't have any weaknesses before the fairy type existed.
Yeah.
And there's only a small handful of fairy type moves that you can get in this game. So you're pretty limited on how you're facing that. The fact that her Garchomp is EV trained to be almost as fast as possible so that it always goes first is absurd. It's such a good fight. If you've played Pokemon and you know anything about the Cynthia fight, you know that like it's an incredibly challenging and rewarding fight.
The music's already playing in my mind right now. Yeah.
I also have Queen from Neva on here. A lot of the combat in Neva is similar to previous enemies that you face. And you've seen Queen, that's the antagonist of the game, in the background of this game going through it. And when you finally come face to face with her, you're standing there with your sword ready to fight her, and she pulls out a sword of her own. And you essentially have like a samurai fight with this creepy enemy.
That's so cool.
With two katanas and stuff. It's crazy fun. And then in the second phase of the fight, when you're able to use Neva, and use all the skills that you've gained throughout the game, and the final, each boss in Neva kind of ends with a similar cutscene where, like, it's really dramatic. Like, you scale up the enemy's body, and this was shown off in trailers, so I don't feel bad mentioning it here. But, like, think of, like, the Ganondorf fight in Wind Waker where you just stab him through the head.
Mm-hmm. Like,
you get up there, and Neva comes up with you, and you, like, attack him straight on in the face together as the music soars. It's stunning. It is so well done. However, it's not the best fight that I played this year. I put Nemesis from Returnal on here. Each boss fight in Returnal is a little bit different. Nemesis is pretty unique because instead of being in one arena, you're jumping from rocks to rock, trying to get closer, trying to land these shots. and then getting sent back. So it's a nice change from the bosses that you've already fought throughout the game. And it's also the first boss fight. It's the third boss you fight in the game, but it's the first one that I felt was perfectly fair. One of the problems with Returnal is that with it being a roguelike, you can make it to a boss and you can just not have gotten the right drops to be able to be effective. It's always beatable, but like the differences in how much you as the player have to do can vary. However, I played through the Nemesis fight a couple times on my way to beating this game, and each time I had kind of like a different build and a different setup, and I always felt like the same level of difficulty. So I thought it was really well designed for a roguelike to have like that level of
That
balance.
can't be easy to do, to have it
Right.
be like that, yeah.
Right. But my winner this year is actually the Hyperion fight from Returnal. I'll talk a little bit more about this, the build up to this fight. But essentially, Hyperion is a big old tree guy who shoots a whole bunch of stuff at you. But while you're fighting him, he's playing this sick tune on this big old organ. So you're like dodging all these bullets, trying to take him down, and he's just sitting there absolutely wailing out this insane battle theme. And like the aesthetic and the vibe and the feel of it is so good. Like I said, I'll explain a little bit more how this one feels. This boss fight feels more substantial than a lot of the other ones from like a narrative standpoint because of where it takes place in the story. But it is like easily one of like my top 3 moments from gaming this year, like hands down. Like it is such a good fight. So good.
Wow. You kind of make me want to play Returnal, even though I don't really like roguelikes.
It's on PC. It's on PC.
No, stop talking.
Best antagonist. The most well-written and compelling enemies.
Best antagonist. I've got Ranrock from Hogwarts Legacy. Ranrock is a goblin. He is a goblin antagonist in Hogwarts Legacy. And that makes him particularly interesting because of the racial difference. Because he's a goblin, right? And because a lot of goblins feel oppressed in the Harry Potter world. They were discriminated for a very, very long time. And this takes place long before Harry Potter's world. And where in the Harry Potter time, I think they've reconciled a lot more things. Still not, I wouldn't say that they're on equal footings with wizards and witches. But particularly in this time, it's interesting because, okay, you've got a whole bunch of, I guess what I'm trying to say is it makes sense that he has a huge following.
Mm-hmm.
So like Ranrock is a goblin, he's trying to revolt against wizards and witches, and he just has crazy wild methods for doing so, very, very radical. And you have a lot of other goblins that feel oppressed and are discriminated, and are treated unfairly. So you've got this fearless leader on your side that's gonna like make things better for your kind. Sure, like why not? I'll go follow him, So it makes sense that he has a lot of loyalists, and that's why I think he's a very interesting antagonist, and I really liked him. His boss battle, however, a little bit disappointing, but I'm not going to get into that. Second one is the Thargoids from Elite Dangerous. So there's no one particular antagonist in Elite Dangerous because it's just space. But they are aliens called Thargoids, and they are they have extremely powerful ships that are very foreign looking. They're alienish looking, but it's not the typical alien saucer looking kind of alien. It's like a biological ship kind of alien vibe. And if you're watching the video version, I'll try to put up a couple pictures of Thargoids on here. But I like them because there's not a lot that humans know about them, and that the unknown is really scary, you know? And I think they do that really effectively. And the way the Thargoids, their ships sound and the kind of weapon that they use, it is frightening, dude. It is scary. I still haven't even encountered a single Thargoid in my hundreds of hours of playthrough because I don't want to seek them out. Like, I know I would just get destroyed. They're like end game enemies, you know? Anyway, very cool. So as of editing right now, I actually have fought a few Thargoids, and I have not managed to beat any of these Thargoid interceptors, but I just thought I would show you a clip of me engaging in one and fighting it unsuccessfully. Just a little snippet, so you can see what that's like. They're like end game enemies, you know? Anyway, very cool. And then I have Pikachu from Pokemon TCG Pocket. Because every Pikachu deck you come across online is going to set up so quickly, circle circuit you, 90 damage, you know, turn 2, brutal stuff. So really effective antagonist in that sense, because it gives you that thrill when you're going online. It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to be a Pikachu deck? You see electric on the other side and you're like, oh crap, is it Pikachu? Pikachu beat my winning streak, you know? I've only been able to get 3 wins in a row because of Pikachu. But the winner is going to have to, I hope I say this right. It's been a while. Valoran. I think it's Valoran from Tales of Arise. He's the main antagonist from Tales of Arise. He is, from the very first time you encounter him, and I'm not going to say anything spoilery in here because I want you to play this game. Like, you get this vibe, this sense that there's something wrong with him. Like, he's not normal. Like, he's ill or something, you know? And yet he is extremely skilled with the sword and extremely powerful, and like way more powerful than you when you first meet him. And it seems like he's at an unreachable level of power. And in your first encounter, if you really wanted to, he could have killed your entire party, but he didn't. That kind of, he gives me kind of like Sephiroth vibes a little bit. Except this guy's a little more like cuckoo crazy kind of, but he's not. But he's also collected at the same time, like his personality and like just how intimidating that he is. I think is really good. And there's a battle with him, and it's very, very difficult, and it's very, very cool. He's a cool character because of all the things that I said, and also because you get to see how the main character overcomes that. So like he sets this crazy high bar that you have to cross over to get to the other side, and I really, really like that.
Nice. On my list, I have Micah Bell from Red Dead Redemption 2. If you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, that name will fill you with fury for what he does. Micah is one of your fellow gang members, but everyone except the leader of the gang hates him. No one wants him around. He's just this slimy, awful human being. And every single time, the Vanderlyn gang is kind of centered on this principle of we're not bad people. We just don't want to follow the new laws that are encroaching in on America. So we're not going to kill unless forced to. We're going to kind of do thievery from like a Robin Hood perspective, where we're going to take from the rich who have plenty to share. Micah doesn't care about any of that. Micah, like very near the beginning of the game, you have to go rescue him from jail. You pop him out of jail. The horses are there. You're ready to leave. Instead, he decides to take you through a town, and you shoot up like 70% of this vacation mountain resort town just because he wants to. And like because he's shooting at people and you're standing next to him, people start shooting at you, so you have to shoot back. But like there was no reason for it. And he does this kind of stuff throughout the entire game. And it's so frustrating, and he is just awful. But he's not my winner because he's a pretty simple character. Like there isn't really any growth or change in him. On my list, I also have Queen from Neva. She's creepy. She's there. She's the reason everything happens in the game. She's intriguing. But it can be hard in a game with no words to develop them as like a character when you don't spend the entire game with them.
Yeah.
So she's intimidating, but she's just kind of there, right? Hyperion in Returnal is my runner-up. Skip ahead like 2 minutes if you don't want any narrative spoilers for Returnal. Hyperion comes after the midpoint of the game. You play through 3 biomes, and then you're rescued from the alien planet you're on. And you see this montage where Celine, your main character, goes home. She lives her life. And then when she dies, she wakes back up on this planet, stuck in the death loop still. But this time, the biomes are all different because of the time passing. Because it's been years later, the entire planet has changed and is reformed into these new biomes that you visit. And Hyperion is the first boss that you face after that return. And throughout his entire biome, you hear his boss theme like faintly in the background. And Celine recognizes it from Earth. And so as you go throughout the biome and you listen to these voice logs that previous loops of Celine that have already died like leave behind for her to listen to, like you start to realize that this antagonist, this specific boss, is the reason that Celine is still stuck in the loop. And so I kind of view him as the main antagonist because he's the reason that she can't escape the loop until the end of the game.
I didn't know that there's a lore reason for the loop.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
And I mean, there's some symbolism that ties into it as well. And a lot of it is like discovered through those video logs. So I think a lot of people kind of miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. And as cool as Hyperion is, my winner is going to be Dutch Vanderland. Because this man, you look at him as a father for the entire game, and you do everything this man asks. He asks you to do stupid thing after stupid thing, bring more and more danger to your family that you've created.
This is Red Dead, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he just... It's so fascinating to watch this philosophical man descend into like insanity and idiocy. And there's like a huge debate in the Red Dead fandom over whether the game is about Dutch descending to insanity or just revealing and not being able to put up the image that he has it all together. And so on my second playthrough, I've been trying to look to see which side, I fall on personally. But it's just so well written, and his relationships with members of the gang, the actions that he takes that are good actions, and how those are then canceled out by poor decisions that he makes later, just like creates such a compelling story arc for this man. And I hate him, but like I hate him for all the right reasons, because there was a chance for this man to not be an antagonist. And so kind of that tragedy is just really compelling to me.
I think that kind of stuff is what makes a good antagonist a good antagonist. That's why I like a lot of antagonists in Naruto, the anime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Man, we're getting there. We're getting there, aren't we? Well,
What does that mean?
no, I mean we're getting to the game of the year
We're getting to the
almost.
peak, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Best gameplay. Games with the most fun gameplay mechanics.
Best gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
I have Control. What makes Control unique in gameplay is that you're using these supernatural powers. And supernatural powers in video games isn't anything new, but the way that you use them is, I think, unique. I haven't really seen any game like it where, you're eventually able to put up, shields and barriers in front of yourself and float around, but you're still just a human at the same time, right? And you have these different weapons that you can cycle through. It's fun. I just like it. Tales of Arise. I won't go too deep into this because I already talked about it in my review, but it is a really unique take on the RPG gameplay, but it's real time. It's not turn based. But there are certain aspects of it that are kind of turn based in the sense that you can't just like use abilities back to back to back. You have to let them recharge a bit. So it's like, okay, when do you use it? How can you use them at the right time to combo them and effectively finish your combo to do the most damage and stuff? Really cool stuff. Pokemon TCG Pocket. I've already said everything. I just think it's a great take on the TCG formula. Rivals of Aether 2. It is on this list because the gameplay was already pretty polished really well in the first game, and I think they just added on top of it on this one, So there isn't really anything like innovative per se, because it really is just piggybacking off of Smash's gameplay that Sakurai pretty much invented. It's hard to I'd say my runner-up is Tales of Arise. The winner is going to be Blade and Sorcery. If I hadn't played this game, if 1.0 hadn't come out, it would have gone to Tales of Arise, like hands down. But just everything I said about the physics and the interactions and the numerous methods of killing your enemies that are at your disposal, and you're doing this all in VR, so it's very, very immersive. It's addicting. It's very, very fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I gotta check it out sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you want, you are welcome to try it out here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. On my list, I have Kingdom Hearts 2. I didn't give it the win because as great as the combat is, I've played that game 4 or 5 times. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm not going to give it the award this time. It's not good enough to win after having played it that many times. Okay.
It is like peak Kingdom Hearts gameplay, though.
It's insanely good. It's insanely good.
Wait, you don't think it's peak Kingdom Hearts gameplay?
I think it's almost peak. I prefer the Birth by Sleep combat model, personally.
Oh, that's
because
the one I
of-
haven't played, right?
Because of the commands and some shot locks and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it poses a decent enough challenge as well.
Gotcha.
But
Cool.
but that's an unpopular take. Most people do agree that Kingdom Hearts 2 is the best. I have Neva on here because I did enjoy the combat and I enjoyed the different ways that you learn to use Neva throughout the game. I thought it was a pretty cool way of incorporating it beyond just having a wolf pet, but actually being able to...
So Neva is the name of the wolf pet?
The wolf, right. Your character's name is Alba, ALBA.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Red Dead Redemption 2 is my runner-up. On my first playthrough, I mentioned in the review that's a Patreon exclusive, by the way. Patreon. But
Go sign up.
that the gameplay was one mixed bag for me because I really liked the shooting and feeling like a cowboy, but there were times where the focus on being as realistic as possible made it a less fun game because there's just a lot of time where you're watching animations of pulling a gun off of your horse's saddle or having to watch as you butcher an animal that you've hunted so that you can take the meat and leave, its skeleton behind and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On my second playthrough, it hasn't been enough of an issue for me though.
Okay.
I think when you know what's coming next and you don't feel as much of a push to get through the narrative side of the game and you allow it to take its time, I think that's how it was designed to be played. So I think I made that mistake. It was my fault on the first time around. And so the second playthrough, the gameplay, I haven't had any complaints about it. I think it's very well designed and does give you that feel of being that gunslinging cowboy. I don't know why.
That's very interesting because usually when I play games for the second time or third time, that kind of stuff I want to get through quickly,
Really? Okay.
Like Pokemon, for example. If I'm playing on an emulator,
You want that health dropping?
oh my gosh, in Gen 4, it takes forever for the health to drop. There are certain parts where I would choose to fast forward a little bit. I mean, that's with Pokemon specifically, but yeah, that's interesting.
But my winner is Returnal.
Dang.
It's just so fun. The shooting feels so good. The way that you kind of dodge their bullets is you have a dash where you can dash and you have less than a second, but still a decent amount of time of invulnerability. So you can pass through those projectiles without getting hurt. And it recharges every 5 seconds or something.
Dang, that's pretty long.
And you can get power-ups to shorten that time as you're going through your run.
Okay.
But it just is so much fun, and each gun feels valid as a legitimate way to go through your run with. Even your starting pistol, you can pick up strengthened versions of the pistol that have different power-ups or a higher fire rate. Can carry more ammo before having to reload or whatever. It's just so much fun. And I mean, my 2 favorite bosses from this year were both from Returnal. So the boss fights kind of, the peak of a lot of games gameplay is just so solid. And yeah, it's so much fun. I'm fairly picky on roguelikes too. It has to have all the right feelings of difficulty and progression and that kind of stuff. And I really think that Returnal nailed it for me personally. So
Dang. Have you ever played Hades?
no.
I wonder what you would think of that one if you played it.
I remember you saying that like
I couldn't do it.
the progression was like the issue for you, right? Like you felt like you lost so much progress after a death,
You
right?
start from the scratch. Yeah, it was just too unforgiving for me. It just got frustrating.
Yeah. Well,
I felt like all my progress before was like completely invalidated if I lost once.
like, I mean, I don't. The reason that I haven't played Hades is because of my weird feelings towards Greek mythology. And that's like why I haven't. But who knows? Maybe I'll try it one of these times.
Oh, very cool.
Best gaming moment. Particular moments in games that highlight the glory of gaming.
Best gaming moment. I gotta tell you, man, like I don't even have a runner-up or anything. I just have one winner moment for this because I just couldn't think of anything else. So, and this is gonna be kind of underwhelming for you guys because I can't really talk about the moment itself because it's kind of a spoiler. Oh my gosh, that bird is going crazy. Sorry about that. But it's Tales of Arise. The conclusion of this. Okay. How the story concludes is just so beautiful. I bawl my eyes out, man. It was really, really good. Not quite near Automata because that one is crazy, but I was trying to think if there's any more information I can give here, but I can't give any specifics. But the best that I can say is that throughout the whole game, you really have two protagonists. You've got Alphen, the main guy, Shion, the main girl, and you can play as either of them and in and out of combat and everything. But they're they bond a little bit, but then they butt heads and they have their differences and stuff, and they're different races of people as well. How that relationship and everything happening in the story with the antagonist, how all those things reconcile at the end is just really, really satisfying. And the music and the animation, the cutscenes that are just straight up anime cutscenes, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it was good.
Nice.
And while you start talking about yours, I'm gonna do something with that bird.
So this is one of the awards that I kind of switched up from how I've normally done it. I decided that there were too many moments from this year that deserved a shout out. And so instead of 2 or 3 nominees and choosing one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 moments, and all of them are winners. So I'm going to mention every single one of them real quick because they all deserve a little bit of a shout out. The true ending of Neva made me cry. The assault on Braithwaite Manor in Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best well-shot video game cinematics I've ever seen.
So there's like a true ending and a regular ending in Neva?
Yes, you have your ending, and then you just get a little bit more closure on the narrative if you like collect all the flowers in the game. So.
Oh, cool.
And then you can go back in and see that conclusion, and it's beautiful. Celine's final voice log in Returnal and when you find out what the game is truly about, is absolutely heartbreaking. The end of the first Kingdom Hearts game, when you have Simple and Sweet start playing as Sora and Kairi are being separated, still hits. Over 20 years later, that moment still hits. Fleeing from Darth Vader in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is one of the best representations of Star Wars and Darth Vader as a menacing character that I have ever seen. So well done. In Neva, there is a section where you are platforming, but instead of looking where your character is, you have to look at their reflection. And so the screen is all black except for this light blue teal star-based aesthetic, and you're using that reflection to progress forward. And the symbolism there is kind of on the nose, how you're supposed to reflect on what you've come from in order to move forward. But it's incredible. Climbing the spire to Returnal, as Hyperion's theme goes from a faint thing into a full organ-based, bass-driven, literally like shook me to my core. Entering the Hall of Fame in Pokemon Shining Pearl is just as satisfying as it was when I was a child. Arthur Morgan's ride to Beaver Hollow in Red Dead Redemption 2 as he contemplates on all the major choices that he has made throughout the game is incredibly emotional. As spring begins to thaw in Neva, again, just a beautiful conclusion and a beautiful milestone for you in the course of that game. In Kingdom Hearts 2, when you return to Destiny Island and Sanctuary starts playing, like, those games know how to end games so well, man. So freaking well. And my last one that I'm going to shout out, Arthur Morgan faces mortality a variety of times throughout Red Dead Redemption 2. And at one point, he is having a religious conversation with a Catholic nun that he's helped a few times throughout the game. And the scenario kind of changes whether you've lived the game honorably or as a dirtbag. And in the honorable approach, it is the only time that Arthur Morgan, like this manly cowboy, cries because he's afraid that he hasn't done enough to earn his redemption from all the bad things that he's done throughout his life. And it is so good. And I couldn't choose just like a straight up winner. So I felt like every single one of those moments encapsulate why gaming means so much to me and highlights the power of the video game medium.
Man, you got such a good list there. That's awesome, man. Oh, my bird didn't ruin the moment.
Nice.
She's going crazy. Game of the year, right?
Did we choose not to do best narrative or best protagonist?
Oh. I guess I'd skipped it. We are doing those.
Okay, no problem. Do you want me to go ahead and do mine while you maybe...
No, I've got
You're good?
mine right here.
Okay. Oh,
I
cool.
for some reason just skipped it.
No worries.
Best narrative. Games with well-told stories and captivating tales.
Best narrative. Hogwarts Legacy.
Nice.
The narrative is good because I was really skeptical about the narrative, actually. I was worried, but I think because they did it in a time that is so separated from Harry Potter's time, they had a lot of creative freedom to do what they wanted to do with it. And it's a compelling story. It's interesting. It's fun. It meshes with the gameplay well. It explains why the main character is so powerful, pretty much. And it's way better than any of the Fantastic Beasts movies. Erica was like, I wish we got this in a movie rather than the Fantastic Beasts stuff.
The first Fantastic Beasts movie isn't awful.
The first one was okay.
First one was okay.
First one was all right.
story goes off the rails after that.
It just went straight downhill after that. Yep. Yeah, I agree. The first one's all right. Agree? No need to say anything there. Control. Control is, I like the narrative because it doesn't really give it to you on a platter. You have to, it compels you to read a lot of the side report stuff that you find on the ground and stuff to try to piece together the narrative. It's like, okay, what's going on here? And it gives you certain pieces of it and certain cutscenes, and it makes you curious, so it makes you want to go and read that. And I just like the way that it's delivered. But the winner is going to be Tales of Arise. I've already talked about Tales of Arise, man, but a surprising amount of the game is voice acted. Like an insane amount of the game is voice acted. And that helps with the engagement and delivering of emotions and stuff. And the cutscenes, like I said again, are gorgeous. And the story is interesting because it tackles things that we face in our world, you know, stuff like racism and bias and, you know, the struggle for power and if you're the underdog and if you're oppressed, does that mean you can do whatever you want to the bad guys, and a lot of different things. And yeah, it's a banger.
Nice. I have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on my list because I think right now, I mean, creating Star Wars content has always been difficult and opened up the potential for contention pretty much since the original trilogy finished, right? Like, ever since, it's such a popular and so important to so many people that people get upset really, really easily when talking about Star Wars. But I thought Jedi Fallen Order was like it still felt Star Wars, but it felt a little bit more mature, a little bit more grounded. And again, exploring that period between episode 3 and 4, I think is such an interesting spot in the Star Wars universe to visit.
Oh, yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed it. I also put Neva on my list. Neva's essentially about watching something or someone grow up and eventually having to deal with what that means as far as periods of separation from that person, what it means to reunite with them, that kind of stuff. And so playing this game in the weeks after my little sister left for her mission, brought a lot of emotions and helped that narrative hit all the right points for me. I think Returnal's narrative is vastly underrated and was almost my winner for the year. As you begin to realize, so Celine is an exploratory astronaut, right? And she is drawn to this planet where she gets trapped in this time loop. And she's trying to figure out how to escape it and why she's there. And through these voice logs, we learn certain details of her life. There's also portions where hypnotically she returns to her home on Earth. And through those sequences, we learn some of the choices that led to her being the one that Hyperion and the other bosses in Returnal chose her to bring to this planet. And so I think it's very complex and layered, and when you beat the game the second time and uncover the true ending there, fully understanding how all the pieces kind of fit together, it's like this really, really cool puzzle that you put together through the gameplay, through everything, and it's a very rewarding experience to kind of understand it once you're done and separated from it. But my winner is Red Dead Redemption 2. It's incredible. The ideas of what it means to be a good person, how to overcome your mistakes, how to balance that with the intricacies of a changing world, and ultimately, like, learning how to choose for yourself when, that might not be something that you're used to be doing because of various reasons, just all the social pressures that you may face. But finding redemption and honestly, like, faith inside of that, it's just so well told. I have nothing more to say on it.
Wonderful. You make me want to play it. Maybe.
It's quite the undertaking. It's gonna be like, if you were to play it and enjoy it, you would be sinking like an insane amount of time into it. Like, it's so long. It's such a long game. Your backlog would only exponentially grow because.
Dang.
But
that'd be a good thing, though, right?
I think so. We'll see.
Shout out to my sock because I just realized it's inside out. And yeah, it's inside out. We're gonna move on to the next topic, which is
Best protagonist. Protagonists that give you the most reasons to love them.
best protagonist. On here, I've got Alphen and Xion, the two from Tales of Rise that I already talked about. The main character in Hogwarts Legacy, because it's just interesting. They're able to use this thing called ancient magic that differs from the typical magic that people are able to use, and what you choose to. You have a lot more freedom in that game than I thought you would, in terms of like how you want to drive the narrative and what choices you want to make. Like, for example, you can completely be a character that is like absolutely no dark arts,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just be like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever I want, The main character in Gree, I don't know her. Does she have a name?
Her name is Grease.
Her name is
Mhm.
Grease. Gree. Yes. But she's not the winner because, like you said, without dialogue, you are gonna be limited. It's more of an emotional storytelling kind of thing that happens in that game. The winner is gonna be Jesse from Control. Because you don't really know Jesse's past at the beginning of the game. You don't even know why she's there, but you know that she is supposed to be there. And without spoiling anything, and this isn't a big deal because you find this out very early on in the game, she talks to you directly as the player. And
Really?
yeah.
That's so sick.
And like at the beginning of the game, I figured it out, but it was still confusing and I didn't know what I was as the player, right? So like, for example, when she gets to like a certain objective or complete something, she'll be like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for, helping me get to this point. I would have had no idea how to do this without you," and stuff. And you have this like weird relationship with her. So from what I understand, I haven't finished the game, by the way. I'm something within her, or something that has taken hold within her body. And she and I work together to do what we need to do in the game. And there's also a lore behind my existence as the player in the game, which is kind of meta. And there are a couple of characters that question my existence and whether I'm something that's good or bad.
That's crazy.
And stuff. Yeah, so it's really cool. And so her whole story, and she goes to this building looking for her brother.
Mhm.
And that's kind of your main quest, is to quote unquote save your brother because these people from the bureau abducted him or whatever. And as you do that, you're uncovering a lot of different things about Jessie, about her brother, about you as the player, what role you play in all this and stuff. And so, yeah, it's just a very interesting dynamic.
And did you say that so you haven't beaten the game? Have you discovered like your
I
the
know,
role that you as the player are within the game's lore?
yeah, I know when Jesse and I discovered each other
Uh-huh.
in the story of the game. And it takes place before you start playing the game.
Okay.
But that's the extent of it. I still
Okay.
don't fully understand everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's actually crazy cool. Like a way cool way to
It's so cool.
incorporate you into
Yeah.
like a game where it's not an RPG, right? Like Jessie has her own personality, right? So like you're playing as her, and so I think that's a
Right.
way cool way to incorporate the player in.
So it's basically, the game is telling me that I am guiding her. I am not her. I'm guiding her do what she's doing. And it's cool because there's certain like visual cues that take place during the game too. Like, if you see this little like sparkle effect or something, you know that's like signifying your communication with her. And so when you see an objective of for example, like in video games you see little like objective marks. It's like, oh hey, you gotta unlock this thing, oh you gotta do this thing. You know what to do, and then so you convey that to Jessie, and that is you controlling Jessie with your keyboard or controller or whatever you need to get there. And then she's like, kind of like I said before, she's like, oh my gosh, like, how did you know that I was supposed to do that? And then in my mind, it's like, well, I'm just playing the game, right? But there's lore behind what's happening there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's way
Yeah.
cool. On my list, I've got Alba from Neva. Same thing as Grease. Cool character. The actions that she takes, I think, tell you a lot about her, and the lack of dialogue does kind of limit what you can do with that. Next on the list is me from Pokemon Shining Pearl, because I like that game, and I like that I'm the protagonist of that game, and I deserve a little bit of a shout out.
Dude, when you said me, I was like, am I? Like, is there a character named me in that game? I was like, wait, we're talking about protagonists. And you're like, oh, M-E, me.
Me. I'm
Sweet.
great.
Nice.
My runner-up is Celine from Returnal. I'm just going to throw this out there. The fact that the voice actress for Celine was not even nominated at most Game Awards in 2021 is like a tragedy, because 2021 was a very slow year for new games, and to not even have her be nominated, considering the absolute powerhouse of a performance she puts in, is a tragedy. Unfortunately, this year she went up against Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2.
I knew that would be the winner.
I mean, this man, like, you have so much control over whether he is an honorable outlaw or an insane criminal. But even in both cases, like the cutscenes for Arthur Morgan, obviously I prefer the high honor version.
Mm-hmm.
But even the low honor version, like, has such an incredible amount of development in how he changes, and a lot of that is shown through his journal. He keeps a journal throughout the game where he comments on missions that you complete throughout the game, but you get bits of his perspective that he doesn't verbally share in cutscenes. And so it just rounds him out into this like very human character, and you see a lot of the sensitivity that he doesn't put out because he's supposed to be this big enforcer for a tough cowboy gang. But like there is this sensitive sense of self who's just, it's just so fascinating to play through. And like it's because of Arthur. If it wasn't playing as Arthur, like I don't think I would have as much of a soft spot for this game as I do.
That's really cool. As you were saying that, it just made me think about how, so like the Zelda development team, their approach to protagonists is to not give them a personality.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Link is named Link, because he's the link between the video game and the player, and Link doesn't say anything. There's a lore reason for why he doesn't say anything, but really the reason is because they want you to pretend as if you are Link, you know? And that's why they don't really give him defining character attributes or dialogue. And then you have the complete opposite approach of something like Red Dead, or Control, where the character is a very defined person with their own personalities and goals and stuff, and you are playing as that person. And I don't know. I don't think either way is the wrong approach. I guess it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Right.
And I don't think, like, I've never played a game with the main protagonist that has a strong personality and thought, well, I could never relate to that person, so why would I want to play as this person? Like, that's never an issue. It's always an interesting way to tell a story. So, it's just cool to see those two
Right.
contrasting views of protagonists. Yeah. Awesome, man. Now we're really here. All right. Sorry I messed up the order there.
Last but not least, Game of the Year. The best overall video games SJ and Alex played in
2024.
Okay, I'm going to name my runner-ups real quick. Is that good?
Yeah.
And then you name yours?
Yeah. Before you do that, give me like 10 seconds. I got to figure out, based off of all the awards that you've given out, what I think your game of the year
your
is
guess.
going to be.
While you think about that, let me just explain that I think this is the way I did it last year as well. I like to actually not have my game of the year picked until like mid-recording. So I just, like, my game of the year has been decided over the course of this recording and discussion that we've had. And the reason that I like to do that is because it helps me refresh my memory as I talk through these games that I've really enjoyed, to make a good decision, I think. So here's my list.
Go for it.
Tales of Arise, Blade and Sorcery, Hogwarts Legacy, Rivals of Aether 2, Pokemon TCG Pocket, and Control. What's your guess?
This is hard because usually, and we talked about this before, usually like we feel pretty confident what the other person's game of the year is going to be going into these. And this year it's not quite as clear cut. I think that this year your game of the year is Blade and Sorcery.
Dang. Why do you say that?
Am I right?
No, I'm just curious.
No. I think I heard talked about a lot more than I was expecting to. And I think as you talked about its gameplay and like the unique, innovative approaches that it brings, I was like, if SJ were to pick a game of the year, I think those two would hold more weight than like the narrative strengths. Than the narrative strengths of, say, Tales of Arise.
Yeah.
But you also said Tales of Arise a lot, and you said Hogwarts Legacy a lot. So those were the three that I was kind of trying to decide between.
Gotcha.
But that's where I went with.
Well, let me say the runner-up is Hogwarts Legacy. It was incredibly difficult to choose between this one and Tales of Arise. And I really couldn't come to a decision until we had this discussion. My winner is Tales of Arise. Yeah. And I talked more about Blade and Sorcery in this one primarily because I already talked so much about Tales of Arise before in my review, but it is just such a well-rounded game. Its story is great, its characters are great, the pacing is great, the combat is great. My only real complaint about it is that difficulty thing that I talked about.
Right.
But even then, you can adjust it like mid gameplay, like if a boss defeats you, you have the option to, switch your loadout, change the difficulty, try again. So it wasn't that big of an issue. And hang on, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
No, and while you're going to do that, honestly, I mean, it's like as you're mentioning it now, I'm like, yeah, like that totally makes sense, because like we haven't done a Blade and Sorcery full review, we haven't done a Hogwarts Legacy full review yet. Whereas Tales of Arise, you were like adamant when you finished that, you were like, I need to talk about this. We need a full episode.
Yeah.
So no, that makes sense.
I just feel like nobody's talking about this game, and I don't know why. Nobody talked about it when it came out.
Right.
I present this to you, Alex. Tales of Arise for PS5.
For PS5.
No pressure whatsoever. Get around to it when you will. You can play for an hour if you decide you hate it. I will not be butthurt. I got it for a pretty good deal, so.
Well, and you said that you think that this game is what I expected Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to be, correct?
Yes.
This might be the beginning of my healing journey where I'm finally able to move past. So this
an even bigger disappointment.
So this goes beyond a video game. This goes to straight up therapy.
This is therapy. There you go. I gave you therapy on a disc.
Thank you. No, I am going to get around to it because now that the semester's over, I have time to fiddle around and try different things. So I definitely will get to it.
Awesome.
To check it out. Thank you.
Yeah.
My game of the year. I have 5 nominees. And I'll list all the nominees before I mention my choice. I have Neva. I have Returnal. I have Red Dead Redemption 2. I have Pokemon Shining Pearl. And I have Pokemon TCG Pocket.
I think I know which one it is.
Okay.
Can I guess?
Go for it.
I think it's Returnal.
That's interesting. If I were to tell you that my runner-up is Neva this year, would that change your answer at all?
I mean, it's Returnal or Red Dead. But this is a... Yeah, maybe it's Red Dead.
Which one are we going with?
Red Dead.
I feel bad because it actually is Returnal.
No,
I'm sorry. No, so I actually so the way that I kind of decide mine is a little bit different. I kind of use a point-based system where I give each game a point for each time that it's nominated. I give it 3 points for each time that it is the runner-up in a category. And then I give it 5 points every time that it wins, to kind of try to weight like the victories and stuff. But the really interesting thing about this year is that my point system didn't work.
What?
Because as I fiddled around with how many points you should get for a nomination versus a runner-up versus a win, like the person who came out on top kept switching because Neva had the most nominations. Returnal had the most runner-ups, while Red Dead had the most wins. So depending on how I weighted each of those, like the end result changed.
Right.
And so when I got to the one that I thought was the most fair, Returnal came out on top. And it was also the one that I felt most comfortable being like, yes, this is the game. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 took a second playthrough to get to a point where I enjoyed the gameplay at an acceptable level.
That's fair.
So in my mind, I was like, okay, if it took that long, I played 70-hour playthrough and then started a second one, and that's when the gameplay wasn't a problem anymore. It's like, okay, meanwhile, Returnal, from day one, I was freaking hyped. So I did go with Returnal. You were right the first time, and I'm going to give SJ the credit for guessing that correctly. I think about it, and if I never play a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 again, I'll be okay. Like that's enough. But I want more of Returnal in every aspect. It's just so good, man. And I feel bad because when we did our games that we didn't get to talk about enough, you mentioned how like you weren't aware how much I enjoyed Returnal. So I feel kind of bad because like I didn't give it the praise that it deserves, but
now it's getting it.
Y'all should go play pretty much every game we mentioned. I mean, I played 2 games this year that came out in 2024. I played Pokemon TCG Pocket and Neva, and that was it.
I think TCG Pocket was the only one I played that game. Oh, and Rivals 2.
But you should definitely check out all these games if you haven't, because I mean, I really want to play about 95% of SJ's list right now, so y'all should get around to that.
Crazy. Well, there you have it. Let us know your thoughts on these games. Have you played them recently? Do you agree or disagree with any of our thoughts? Yeah, I'd be curious. Especially in the Discord. Join us in the Discord. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters for our down-to-earth cockatiels. We have Joshua, we have Matthew, and we have Tyler. And for our down-to-earth parakeets, we have Nicholas and we have Noah. So,
And Jay Maurer.
And Jay Maurer. I will never forget about you. You're always in my heart. Thank you all. And we are consistently producing extra episodes on the Patreon. There's over 20 episodes on there now. So that is a great place if you're looking for more podcast content, and there's some pretty funny stuff in there as well. If you want a way to support us, but you're like, you know what, I can't, spend $5 a month on this. I totally get it. The best way you can help us really is by spreading the word. Tell your friends about how much you like our podcast.
Yeah. We want to thank you for a great 2024. We are moving into our 4th year of doing this. And we got some stuff in the pipeline. There's reviews of games we need to do. We still have random topics that just come to us. We do like to prioritize what our listeners want to hear. So if there's anything you want to hear us talk about it, please let us know. We'd be happy to chat about it. We're excited to see what comes next. And we're sorry that the video feed cut out again a minute ago or so. But you get to look at these flattering pictures of both of us. We look fantastic.
Oh, that's so bad.
So hopefully y'all enjoy that.
Hope you all have a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
See you in a bit.
See you next year.